My stepdaughter passed away 4 weeks ago, and I caught my husband and his ex-wife in our bed. My stepdaughter Lily, 14F, passed away 4 weeks ago, and I feel like my world has completely fallen apart. She came into my life when she was just 7 years old, and we developed an incredible bond over the years. I loved her as though she were my own daughter, and it was clear that she loved me too. She even called me Mom, which was something her biological mother, Susan, 38F, never had an issue with. For 7 years, my husband Tomas, 40M, Susan, and I have maintained a surprisingly positive and supportive relationship. There was mutual respect among us, and any potential drama was non-existent. Susan was always kind to me, and the three of us worked well together for Lily's sake. After Lily's death, Susan was overcome with intense grief and anxiety, leaving her unable to function on her own. With no family to support her, Tomas and I agreed that she could stay with us for a while. It felt like the right thing to do. She was family, after all, and we wanted to be there for her. Since moving in, Susan has hardly left the house. Most of her time is spent in Lily's room, sleeping or quietly grieving. I understood her need to be close to Lily's memory, and I tried my best to support her. I would frequently check on her and remind her that she didn't need to rush her healing process. I even encouraged her to lean on me if she ever needed someone to talk to. This morning, I had errands to run and invited Susan to join me, thinking it might be good for her to get some fresh air and a change of scenery. She declined, saying she preferred to stay home and rest. I reassured her that it was okay and asked Tomas to keep an eye on her while I was gone. I even suggested he try getting her to eat something, as her appetite had been almost non-existent since Lily's passing. I left the house planning to be out for about 2 hours, but halfway through my errands, I realized I had forgotten the library book I needed to return. With a quick sigh of frustration, I decided to swing back home and grab it. The moment I stepped into the house, I heard noises that made my heart drop. Moaning coming from our bedroom. I froze in place, my brain racing to process what was happening. Deep down, I already knew. My stomach churned, and my chest felt like it was caving in. Summoning all my courage, I walked to the bedroom, flung open the door, and saw them, Tomas and Susan, in our bed, tangled together. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. What the hell is going on? I shouted, my voice shaking with fury and heartbreak. Susan bolted upright, her face pale as she stammered incoherently before darting into the bathroom, slamming the door behind her. Tomas, meanwhile, stayed where he was, his face twisted with guilt. He started apologizing, but his words felt hollow. Through my tears, I demanded an explanation. Tomas finally admitted that he had made lunch for Susan, and while they were eating, they started reminiscing about Lily. One thing led to another, and Susan kissed him. Instead of pulling away, he kissed her back, and somehow, it ended with them in our bed. Both of them are now begging me to forgive them, claiming it was a moment of weakness brought on by shared grief. They're adamant that it was a terrible mistake and that it doesn't reflect their true feelings. I feel utterly shattered. I love Tomas deeply, and I've always cared for Susan, but this betrayal cuts so deep that I don't know how to move forward. I'm heartbroken, angry, and confused. They've put me in an impossible position, and I feel stuck in the wreckage of their actions. How do I begin to process this? How do I rebuild trust, or even decide if I want to? Right now, I can't see the way ahead. All I know is that my heart is in pieces. Update: I've made my decision. I'm filing for divorce. There's no salvaging my marriage to Tomas after what he did. The trust is broken beyond repair, and I can't see a future where I feel safe or loved in this relationship again. It's devastating because up until now, I truly believed we had something solid. I thought we shared an incredible bond. He was always so attentive, kind, and reliable, or so I thought. What happened has shattered that illusion completely. Last night, Tomas came over to talk, and what he revealed left me even more heartbroken than before. He confessed that the betrayal wasn't a one-time mistake, as I had desperately hoped to believe. The truth is, he and Susan had been sleeping together for 3 months before Lily passed away. 3 months. The timeline feels unbearable to process. They were already carrying on this affair while we were all supposed to be supporting Lily through her illness. To know that they betrayed me during a time when I was most vulnerable makes it all the more excruciating. The sheer weight of his admission has left me reeling. How could he do this to me? To us? To Lily's memory? The man I thought I knew and loved is a stranger to me now. Susan also reached out to me last night. She sent a message thanking me for everything I'd done for her, saying she was sorry for the pain she caused. I couldn't bring myself to respond. Her words felt hollow, almost cruel in their simplicity. There's no apology that could undo what she did. I blocked her without saying a word. What hurts even more is how deeply I trusted her. I let her into our home, our lives, and our grief. I treated her like a friend, like family. I bent over backward to make sure she felt supported, never imagining she could betray me like this. Knowing that Susan was someone I considered close makes this betrayal cut even deeper. As much as it feels unbearable right now, I know what I have to do. Staying with Tomas isn't an option. I can't forgive him, and I certainly can't move past what happened. There's no way I'll ever look at him the same way again. It's not just him I'm cutting out. I'll be severing ties with Susan, too. Both of them are out of my life for good. I've seen comments from people blaming me for this, saying I should have known better than to let Susan into our home. To those people, I want to say this. I am not at fault here. I'm a person who chooses to see the good in others, even when it means being vulnerable. I believed Susan was a good person, and I thought she was grieving just like the rest of us. It's not unusual to be on friendly terms with an ex, but it was something I thought worked well for our family dynamic. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine it would end like this. I'm not going to let their actions change who I am. I'm a trusting and giving person, and I refuse to let their betrayal harden me. But I've learned an incredibly painful lesson about boundaries and trust. Moving forward, I'll be far more careful with my heart. Thank you to everyone who reached out with kind words and support during this unimaginably difficult time. Your encouragement has meant the world to me, and I don't think I could have faced this without the reassurance that I'm not alone. This chapter of my life is coming to an end, but I'm ready to turn the page and start fresh. I am done with Tomas. I am done with Susan. And though it's going to be hard, I know I'm strong enough to move on. Update number 2. I've been receiving a lot of questions since my last post, so I thought it might be helpful to address some of the most common ones. Hopefully, this will clear things up and provide more context about what's been happening. Have I told anyone else about what happened besides my mom? Yes, I have. After the initial shock wore off, I confided in a few close friends and family members. It wasn't easy, but their support has been a lifeline for me during this devastating time. Thankfully, most of them have stood firmly by my side. Many are just as disgusted and hurt by Tomas's actions as I am, and have chosen to cut ties with him entirely. Where's Tomas staying now? Right now, he's staying at a hotel. None of our mutual friends are willing to let him crash at their place. It seems like he's burned a lot of bridges because of his actions, and the fallout is catching up with him. Honestly, it's a small relief to know I don't have to worry about running into him unexpectedly at a friend's house. Has Tomas tried to fight me on the divorce? Yes, he did at first. He begged me not to go through with it and kept asking for another chance. He promised to make things right and tried to convince me that we could rebuild what we had. But I made it very clear to him that I'm too emotionally drained to fight this battle. I told him I needed to let go for my own peace and healing. Eventually, he relented and agreed to proceed with the divorce. Why isn't Tomas staying with Susan? According to Tomas, he's completely cut ties with Susan. He told me that continuing any relationship with her would only deepen the hurt he's already caused me, so he claimed he's done with her for good. He said they have no reason to stay in contact anymore. Do I believe him? I honestly don't know, and at this point, I don't care. Whether they end up together or not is no longer my concern. I've reached a point where all I want is peace and to move forward with my life. What was Tomas's excuse for cheating? His excuse is as pitiful as you might expect. He claimed that their affair started accidentally one night when I was staying at my mom's. Apparently, he was feeling overwhelmed because of the stress we were facing while trying to conceive and coping with our miscarriages. He told me he turned to Susan to vent, and somehow that conversation led to them sleeping together. It's sickening to think about, and the fact that they both let it happen shows how little respect they had for me or the sanctity of our marriage. Update: I've recently discovered that Tomas isn't staying at a hotel as he claimed. Instead, he's staying with Susan. His excuse? He said the hotel was too expensive, and Susan is the only person willing to help him right now. I had a gut feeling this would happen, but hearing it confirmed still shattered me. The thought of them sharing the same space and probably continuing their relationship makes my chest ache. It feels like a fresh betrayal every time I think about it. This morning, I spoke with my lawyer to move forward with the divorce. Tomas has agreed to it, which brings me a strange sense of relief. At least I don't have to fight him on this, and I can focus on cutting ties for good. My mom has been staying with me, helping me cope, but she's leaving on Sunday. The idea of being alone terrifies me. Having her here has kept me grounded, and her presence has been the one thing holding me together. I don't know how I'll handle the quiet, empty house once she's gone. On Monday, I'll return to work. It'll be my first day back since Lily passed away. While I'm nervous about how it might feel, I'm also hoping it'll be a good distraction. Losing Lily has left such an enormous hole in my life, and focusing on work might help me reclaim a sense of normalcy, however small. Today, I decided to sort through some of Lily's belongings. It was bittersweet, but I felt like it was something I needed to do. While going through a box in the back of her closet, I came across her diary. Holding it in my hands, I couldn't help but wonder, would it be wrong to read it? Part of me thought it might bring me closer to her, to see the world through her eyes and understand her thoughts. Another part of me felt like it might be an invasion of her privacy. After some inner debate, I decided to read a few entries. What I found only made me love her more. She was such a sweet, thoughtful soul. Her entries were full of typical teenage musings, talking about crushes, fights with friends, and cherished family memories. But then I stumbled upon something that gave me pause. In one entry, written a few months before she passed, Lily mentioned noticing some odd behavior between Tomas and Susan. She didn't directly state that she knew about the affair, but she did write that she found it strange how the three of us seemed to be hanging out more than usual without me. Reading those words broke my heart all over again. Even though she didn't fully understand what was happening, the fact that she noticed anything at all weighs heavily on me. I plan to read more of her diary, but so far, it's been a bittersweet experience filled with memories of the amazing person she was. Susan somehow found my Reddit posts and decided to create a fake Facebook account to message me. She's now threatening to sue me for sharing what happened online. According to her, I've invaded her privacy, and Tomas apparently supports her decision. I don't even know how to process this. Am I not allowed to share my own experiences? To seek comfort and advice from strangers who have shown me more kindness than either of them? The audacity of these two is beyond comprehension. I feel so drained. All I want is for this nightmare to be over. Susan, if you're reading this, I have nothing left to say to you. Tomas, you've lost everything, and yet you still managed to dig deeper into the hole you've made. In a shocking and heartbreaking turn, Susan took her own life a week after sending those threatening messages. I don't even know how to put into words how I feel about this. As much as she hurt me, this was never something I wanted. And yet, Tomas has placed the blame squarely on my shoulders. He says that if I hadn't spoken about what happened or written about it online, none of this would have happened. His words feel like knives, even though I know, deep down, that I'm not responsible for Susan's choices. I'm overwhelmed with a mix of emotions: grief, guilt, anger, and confusion. Right now, I need time to process everything. I'll be stepping away for a while to focus on healing, but I wanted to let everyone know what's been going on. Thank you to those who have been supportive throughout this ordeal. Your kindness has meant more to me than you can ever imagine. Now on to the next story, story 2. My sister-in-law pranked me by giving me alcohol knowing I don't drink. Turns out she hated me. I'm 29 years old and I don't drink. The reason is simple but deeply personal. I grew up with 2 abusive alcoholic parents. It took years of therapy and a lot of self-work to even be able to be around people who are drinking without feeling anxious or triggered. When I meet new people and they offer me a drink, I just politely say, I don't drink, and usually they accept it without any questions. There have been a few instances where people ask why, but I never go into the traumatic details of my past. Fortunately, I've never had anyone push the issue until last weekend. Every second Saturday of the month, my husband, 30M, and his sister, 32F, host a cookout for their childhood friends. I've always admired how close they are to so many of their friends because, personally, I moved away from my hometown years ago and only stay in touch with one friend from school. Since my husband and I started dating, I've attended these gatherings and everything has always been fine. I get along well with his friends and with his sister, Emma. This time, however, my husband took my little brother, 11M, on a dad/son outing for the day. I've been his legal guardian since I was 20, so it was just me at the cookout. I've been to these events alone before, and it's always been fine. When I arrived, my sister-in-law handed out mimosas, and I simply asked for just orange juice as usual. But when I took a sip of the drink she handed me, I immediately spit it out. The taste of champagne hit me like a ton of bricks. I turned to my sister-in-law, thinking she had given me the wrong drink. "Oh, you must have given me your drink by mistake," I said. But then I saw her and two of her friends laughing. I was so confused. "What's going on?" I asked, my confusion growing. Through her giggles, Emma said, "We thought it would be funny to see how you'd react to alcohol since we've never seen you drink before. You should have seen your face." I was honestly shocked and just muttered, "What the hell?" as they continued to laugh. I didn't know what else to say. I felt like I was in some sort of twisted joke, and I just couldn't stay. I told them I was leaving and walked out, feeling completely overwhelmed. The drive home was a blur. I don't even remember most of it because I was trying to calm myself down enough to avoid having a panic attack. When I finally got home, I broke down in tears. My husband and brother returned home shortly after, and I couldn't hide how I was feeling, even if I had wanted to. My husband immediately saw that something was wrong and asked what happened. I couldn't hold it in anymore and started crying again. I hate that my little brother had to see me like that. I always try to keep our home a happy, safe space for him. After I put on a movie for my brother, I told my husband everything. He was furious. I had never seen him so angry. He told me to take some time to relax with my brother, and he was going to handle it. I could hear him yelling at Emma on the phone, and after about an hour, he returned and sat with us. He said that we wouldn't be seeing her again. The next day, we decided to tell my in-laws. I've always been very close with them, so I wanted to confide in them, but I was nervous because, after all, Emma is their daughter. I didn't want to badmouth her, but to my surprise, my in-laws were horrified and deeply apologetic. They were completely on my side, which made me feel better, especially since my little brother adores them. I was relieved that this didn't affect our relationship with them. Now, looking back on this past week, I feel incredibly weird. I feel betrayed. It's hard for me to understand how my sister-in-law and her friends thought it was okay to treat me like that, to use me as some sort of entertainment for their amusement. I know they don't understand the trauma it triggered for me, but it's just left me confused and hurt. I also feel guilty. I don't want to ruin my husband's relationship with his sister, and I don't want him to miss out on his time with his friends. But I also don't want him to be in a situation where he's forced to choose between me and his sister. My husband has been amazing through all of this. He's assured me that it wouldn't be my fault if they never spoke again, but it's hard not to feel responsible. Still, I've had several therapy sessions this week to process everything, and I know I'll be okay. This was just such a bizarre and difficult experience. It might seem like a small thing to some, but for me, it's been a massive trigger. Writing this out has really helped me. Thank you so much for listening to my ramblings. Thank you to everyone who left me such kind comments and messages on my previous post. I truly appreciate it. I'll get straight to the update now. A lot of you guessed it correctly. This isn't the first time my sister-in-law has done something like this. In fact, she's definitely what some people would call a mean girl. My husband and his parents have had multiple falling outs with her over the years, but things had been okay recently, at least until she decided to prank me. I can understand why my husband's immediate reaction to go no contact might have seemed like an overreaction, but honestly, he's dealt with so much from her in the past. I don't want to go into too many details because they're personal to him and his family, but I hope you all understand that it's complicated. So, here's what happened after my last post. After discussing everything with my therapist and my husband, I made the decision to reach out to my sister-in-law. I messaged her and asked if she wanted to meet for lunch and talk about what happened. My goal was to explain my past, share my PTSD diagnosis, and let her understand why what she did had such a huge impact on me. I wanted to find some resolution and reach an understanding, but she never responded. A few of my husband's friends who had been at the cookout when the prank occurred called to check in on me. They were really kind, and they told me they had no idea that Emma had planned that prank. Apparently, they were upset by it too, and they told her after I left that it wasn't okay. That was probably why she didn't fill them in on her little scheme. After a couple of days of not hearing from her, I gave up on waiting for a response and decided to just move on. Then, yesterday, my sister-in-law blew up my husband's phone with a series of awful messages. To sum it up, she called me all sorts of names, everything from bitch to cunt and even worse. She also said that it wasn't her fault that your wife is a pussy who's scared of champagne. But the worst thing she said was that my husband was just doing charity by taking in a couple of orphans. If you don't remember, I have custody of my 11-year-old brother, and we have no contact with our parents because they're abusive. So, to hear her say that was really hurtful. I was honestly just in shock. We had never been best friends or anything, but I thought we got along well enough. I had no idea she held such animosity toward me. Maybe she's just embarrassed by the way her parents or her friends reacted to her actions and is lashing out at me as a result. I don't know. What I do know is that what she said was cruel and unnecessary. In response to her, my husband sent just one message back, telling her that he never wanted to see or speak to her again. He then blocked both her and her husband's numbers. He also told his parents about what had happened, and they were just as furious as he was. I'm not sure what they said to her, but I can tell you they are as done with her as he is. Since I've been in therapy and have strong support around me, her words haven't affected me as much as they might have otherwise. I realize she's clearly dealing with her own issues, and I'm just her latest target. The worst part was that she brought up my brother. I'll never forgive her for that. He's not an orphan. He has two parents who love him. And I'm not an orphan either. I have in-laws who love and support me, and they always have my back, even when it comes to their own daughter. If I never see my sister-in-law again, I'm completely okay with that. I honestly hope one day she'll come to her senses and realize that the way she treats people isn't right. In the meantime, we've decided to turn every second Saturday of the month into a family day instead of attending the cookouts. I'm doing okay. In fact, I already feel miles better than I did when I wrote my previous post. As for everyone who's called me dramatic, I'm genuinely happy that you don't have experience with PTSD or triggers. But I don't think it's funny to give someone alcohol without their consent, even if you think the person might drink. I just want to say again, thank you for all the kind words and support. I truly appreciate it. I hope there won't be any more updates, but if something crazy happens, I'll keep you all posted.